2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of our Binge-worthy webinar series on Microsoft Teams. Today is Teams in Teams Part 2. Tuesday, if you were here with us, we had a great time. And I think it became fairly obvious that there is a lot to talk about when we're talking about Teams, specifically our Teams in Teams. Not that that's confusing at all. So today we're going to break it down a little bit further. We're going to talk about configuring your teams, channels, tabs, the settings, what you can do for your teams. So that's what we're going to do today. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joy Apple, also known as Joy of SharePoint. I'm a modern workplace strategist and lead trainer at Pate Group. We just celebrated a birthday. How old are we now, Stacy? 7? We're 7.
We're 7 years old. I love it.
We're so proud. We're so proud. We can ride bikes and everything. So I've been in the Microsoft space for about 11 years. Started out as a farm admin, and now I've worked my way to doing what I love best, and that's working with people, not just the tech. And I have with me Richard Calderon. Richard, how are you?
Hello, doing pretty well today. Thanks. So thanks for joining us all today again as well. I am also, like Joy, I'm a workplace strategist at Pate, which effectively means that we do kind of all things Microsoft 365 related, not just on the technology delivery side, but really on the overarching business value side. So trying to understand what about Microsoft 365 is going to help change the way that work is accomplished in your organization. So Joy and I get a chance to have all these great conversations with our customers. Again, not just about the tech, but about how's this meaningful to your business. So that's why we put together these webinars, and we're happy to be here with you guys today to share some of this. So moving quite ahead, and I'm going to apologize in advance if for some strange reason some of these poll questions are going to be a little bit out of the normal sequence than they were here. If you pop these up, there's some links in the Q&A that we're sharing with you today that you can go to take some of these poll questions. Or if you have your mobile device with you, you could just fire up the camera and scan this QR code to get to some of these questions as well on your mobile device. But we like to just kind of get a little bit of a sense of who's in the room here. So I'm going to drag the screen down here. I had this here a minute ago, but to effectively just understand who's who. So if you would please start just kind of weighing in on some responses here as to who's in the webinar attendance today. We'd certainly appreciate that. So we've got some responses that are kind of rolling in at this point now. So again, thanks for participating. I've got some folks again that are profiled as IT pros, some folks that are considered part of the management part of the teams. So thanks again for joining us. We've got somebody coming in from a business and an executive in the house today. So again, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. So again, anywhere along the way, feel free to just continue to, if you jump in to answer those poll questions, we'd appreciate that. Going back into the polls, moving into question number 2. And again, this is the one that may or may not be showing up correctly for you at this point now, because we were just reordering some of these actually right before the webinar started. Yeah, so for backgrounds, if you have seen that backgrounds have now been introduced for Microsoft Teams meetings. I've got one kind of up behind me at the moment now, and Joy's got a fun one that she'll show you here in a second. So we'd love to know whether or not you are utilizing custom backgrounds yet at this point. So I'm going to flip over to that question here. And that's the thing that's probably not working properly for me. So here you go. This is actually question 2. Have you used Teams backgrounds yet? So if you would go ahead and respond to that. And again, this may be where maybe we've got some of the links not in the right place, or maybe the wrong QR codes. Apologies for that in advance. But
if you'll put the QR code back up, I'll test it real quick.
Okay, sure, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, what's the good of slides if you don't manipulate them literally seconds before?
Seconds before, yep. That's
yeah. Okay. We were just deciding, do we put this one number 2 or number 3, and I think that just kind of that threw some of us off.
And this one is the Teams one.
This one's number 2. Okay, you know what? Let's just, because we have the ability to do that, let's just flip around to some of these other options as well too. So we are also curious to know, we've got a number of good responses here today. In terms of doing configuration in Teams, And a lot of that is very much centered around if you are a owner of a team, so if you've created one or if someone has promoted you to become an owner of a team, what are the types of things now that you have this great power available to you are probably the most interesting things to talk about today. So when to create channels seems to be a really high topic on the list. So 10 or 11 of them. Kind of coming in a close second here, the ability to add apps. Oh, just took the lead. Creating a team from a template. So, you know, being able to say that you want to be able to repurpose that, I think that's good. And actually creating teams from a template is now on a near coming up on a close second place here. On when to create teams.
Feels like
but
a
adding
horse race.
apps, yeah, adding apps, adding tabs, and then of course, you know, public versus private channels, options for creating a team. Really, you know, you could say these are all really great topics to cover, and so we're going to do our best to do that as well today. And then going back into this question, going back into this question here about backgrounds, just kind of an interesting one to understand from some folks. So some of you didn't know that they were backgrounds now. So surprise, Microsoft just recently released that to public general availability. So you do have that ability to go in and use that.
Can we demonstrate that, how we can show the different backgrounds real quick before we jump in?
Sure, happy to do that. Let me pull the faces of my friendly colleagues down here. Oops. So that you all can see. There you are. Oh, come on now. Technical difficulties. Demos. Please stand by. Okay. All right. So so when you are in a Teams meeting and you hover, you'll get this little bar that gives you options of things you can do. And when you hit more actions now, what used to basically just say blur my background now has this option to say show background effects. And when you say, I want to show background effects, out of the box, that is to say, Microsoft provided, gives you the ability to either blur your background again. So that's what this little option here is. I want to blur it. And then there's a whole set of really kind of fun backgrounds that they're giving you here to be able to change to. Joy and I were actually just talking right before the webinar that we have also enjoyed finding the hack that at the moment, it is a hack, until Microsoft releases the ability to create custom backgrounds of your own choosing. But I've actually included some additional ones here that I just thought were fun backgrounds. Went and got the you know, non-license required backgrounds that you could choose. But basically, you can just select a different one. You can say, I want to preview this, so you can sort of see what it looks like if you want to preview this for yourself. And then if you want to apply that, you can apply that as so. And so do you all see that my background has changed to this new background?
Yes.
At this point now? Yeah. Okay. Or if, you know, really you're just dying to be outside these days, which I think most people are, you know, you can apply some kind of fun outside background too. So anyhow, custom backgrounds, effects, play around with them, enjoy. Again, Microsoft, I believe, is going to sometime in the near future, we'll look at the roadmap, release that ability so you don't have to hack that. But if you're interested in the hack, we'll let you know where we found that. Okay. All right. So thanks for answering the polls. And then let's move into the meat of the webinar. Joy, you want to take it from here?
Yes, that means it's my turn. So let me find all the buttons. Who's got the buttons? And I'm going to, I'm actually going to click the right button. That's the magic right there, is clicking the right button. Yeah. Okay. So again, part 2 of Teams inside of Teams. So on the left rail, which is the series of buttons along the left-hand side of the screen, we have Teams. That's where we're going to focus most of our attention today. We want to talk about configuring your teams. That includes joining teams, creating teams, managing the teams that you've created, and your channels. And so looking at the poll options or answers, it looks like creating teams was a hot topic. We have options. We always have options in Microsoft 365, right? By the way, did you know it is officially Microsoft 365? The rename is official. So if you're like me, you'll keep calling it Office 365 for about 6 months until you get used to the new terminology. But we can create from scratch. We can create from an existing team, kind of like a template, and we can create from existing Microsoft 365 groups, the groups formerly known as Office 365 group.
That's
So
right.
I'm going to, yes. I tried to find the Prince kind of icon to put next to that, but I didn't have enough time.
Formerly known as, yeah, formerly known as.
Yeah, formerly known as. At least they have a name, right? So I'm in a demo environment, and I can always tell my demo environment because it's not in dark mode. So at the very bottom of Teams, if I say join or create team, I have some options here. So this is kind of a twofer. I'm going to do 2 birds, 1 stone while I'm on this screen. So while I'm here, I could create a team. If I have a code, Richard's going to talk about codes and I'll do the demo, but you can join with a code as a team owner. You can generate a code and send that out, and anyone with the code, so we want to do that responsibly, can come here and join. And if there are any public teams, see, I see public here, that's a team that's open to the organization. And anyone, if they know how to find this screen, that's kind of a big deal, right? But anyone that knows how to find it can come join it. Okay, so that was my twofer. So I'm going to create team. And when I do that, you see I have options. Build a team from scratch. More options. TMO, too many options. Private. This would be more for like a traditional team, like a department team, a functional area of the business or a project, right? Specific people. If anyone ever needs to be added to this team, an owner has to explicitly add them to the, I almost said it, the Microsoft 365 group that manages the access to this team. Oh, I caught it though, I caught it. Public means anyone in this organization can join. They just come to the join screen and click it and they're in. Org-wide, Richard, pop quiz. Is it still correct that you can have up to 5 org-wide teams in a tenant?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, I had it right. This means it's kind of stepping on Yammer's toes, but this means I can create this as a group and everyone with a username and password for our organization is added to it. And I don't think they can voluntarily leave. It's the Hotel California of Teams, okay? So you create it, and that's like a good team for your org-wide communications and news. Maybe you're not so sure people are going to the actual SharePoint homepage. So this is a way to back up and reiterate that information here inside of Teams. Okay, I'm going to hit the back button. My next option, create from. Oh, they haven't updated it. Look at that.
Not yet, not yet. It'll take some time.
Get with the program. Okay. So I can create a new team from something I already own. So basically, I can pick on one of these teams. If one of these teams already has a general structure that I really want to use, then I can duplicate that. I have no idea which one of these I want to use, so I'm going to use the retail. But wait, there's more. So I probably don't want to call it retail copy. Maybe I'm going to call this e-commerce, something fun like that. Give it a description. Anything you put here is searchable metadata. Metadata is not reserved for SharePoint. Public or private. Do I want to duplicate the apps that are available, the tabs, the settings? Is it going to be the same membership? So I could start with that membership and then add other people in as well, or maybe refine it. That might get me most of the way there. Now, one thing that I don't have the option to do in my demo tenant right now is duplicate the channels, but that is an option. I think it's reserved for admins. Okay, so close that down. And one other, no, go back. Go back. One other option that is not available in my tenant, but it is here, is to create from an Office 365 group. That means that I've got a SharePoint site out there that has a group, but it's never been teamified. So I have to have a higher level of permissions than I have in this demo tenant. But if I did, I could do that, and then I could go use that SharePoint team site and the Office 365 group that's already out there. So I'm not having to deal with duplicate sites. If you are a SharePoint admin or Teams admin, good chance you're both in this modern world. Keep in mind, you don't have to start from scratch, because when you start from scratch, you're creating a SharePoint site, a group inbox, a group calendar, planner, OneNote. I always feel like I'm forgetting something. But if you start from scratch and you already had a team site that this group of people was working on, you're now creating a duplicate site. So utilize that existing Office 365 group and SharePoint site.
Okay,
All
we
right.
have, I just want to make sure just
Yeah.
so can you create a team on top of an existing SharePoint site? I want to make sure that that gets clarified.
And that would be this option that I don't have in this demo tenant, to click on Office 365 group, because probably what happened is someone was in Outlook and they created an Office 365 group. And when you do that, you get a SharePoint site. So this would be layering teams on top of that. All right. Richard, what did I forget to talk about there? Anything?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Wait. Oh, too fast, too fast. Back it up. Okay. Joining a public team. Again, this is a screenshot from my demo because it's dark mode. But I can absolutely come to that join or create team page and join. And you notice there's a search bar up here. So if there were a lot of public teams, but I knew I was looking for something in particular, I could absolutely search to find it. Joining with a code. So this is a sneak preview. If you're on a team and you click Manage Team, you get a code there under the settings. And then you can give that code to people. They can go to that join page and come right in. Makes it a little easier than having to go, manage things one-off as the owner. You're actually just bringing people in at this point. All right. So another hot topic that I noticed was channels. I'm going to go back into demo here. So I've got a few teams. Let's condense this. So we see Lydia here, whose persona I am using. She's a member of several teams, and that feels pretty realistic. At Pate Group, what was the count in our last meeting, Richard? We've got about 40 active projects right now.
At least, yeah, that's true.
Yep. Okay, so Richard and I are part of about 40 project teams. Now, we may not actively be participating inside of every team every day, but they're there, okay? So you have the options to kind of move these teams around, drag and drop them in a way that makes sense. So I can put the ones I'm in the most up top. I could even, well, I thought I could pin teams. No, it's channels. I could even break this down and find my channels. And if I'm in the sales readiness one, you see there's some urgent messages. There's a lot of activity there. I can pin that channel up to the top. So it's always within reach. It's a button click away.
Yeah.
So let's talk channels. Channels are how we organize our team. There's two areas where our teams have to have organization. Otherwise, it just becomes a jumbled up mess. That's our content. And when I say content, I mean the things we share in files. So our content and our communication, and that's our posts. So if I didn't have any channels inside of Contoso Sales, and we were just all in general talking about our knowledge sharing, our sales readiness, let's see what's hidden here, goals and planning and potential leads, if all that happened inside of general, it becomes like a mini inbox where there's not a whole lot of organization to all the emails that come in, unless I just had a revelation, Richard.
Yeah.
Unless you like to create folders in Outlook to organize your emails.
Sure.
Right? That kind of feels like a channel to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
I like it. So channels organize your communication and your content inside of your team. So if Contoso Sales needed another place to talk, another topic that they were going to talk about, then we would just create a channel to manage that stream of communication inside of sales. And I'll also say, I'm going to click on knowledge sharing. Let's see what's here. I don't know if there's a lot of files here, but I found that we have a tendency to want to create folders inside of files. That starts to make stuff hard to get to and hard to find, because every time you create a folder, you're creating another layer that you have to dig through to find content. A sure sign you need another channel is you're putting folders in files, because we're going to want to talk about those files. And for some reason, we felt the need to create another bucket in there because we wanted to organize them differently from the channel they were already in. So just try it out. The next time you feel an urge to come into files and say new folder, create another channel instead, because your channel is a folder. Every channel I create inside of Teams becomes a folder in my SharePoint document library. And Richard and I have decided that one of our upcoming webinars is going to be all about files and Teams.
That's right. Yep. There's so much to do there. So
SharePoint.
Yep.
Right? All right. So add channels to better organize your team. Everyone in the team has access to those standard channels. Embrace the teamwork. I know we have a tendency to want to, well, I don't think Richard needs to see this, so I'm going to secure it so only me and Stacy can. And then I'll have a place where just Richard and I can talk, because we don't think Stacy needs to see that. Don't do it. You're on the same team. Work together. And then now we come to private channels. I'm curious if you all would put stuff in chat. Just a simple yes or no would do. Are you using private channels now in Teams? I'm curious, and I can't see the chat, so Richard and Stacy can shout that information out. I feel like as soon as private channels hit, people kind of went wah ha ha and went nuts.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because it was by far maybe the most requested feature since Teams came out many, many years ago. And so, yeah, as soon as it was released, everybody just kind of went crazy, swung the pendulum a little far.
And it happens in SharePoint too. When someone finds out, you mean I can break permissions on a document library so not everyone on the site can see it? Oh, yeah. And they just go start breaking permissions. Every time you do that, whether it's private channels or libraries in SharePoint, you are increasing your management by a lot. So ask yourself a couple of questions. Actually, one question. Are all of these people part of the same team? So I'm thinking about creating this channel for e-commerce. Should everyone in sales see it? Well, yeah, we're all working on it. It's the same group of people. It's not sensitive information. I came out from the government side of the world, so I always think, is it a breach of security? Right? Is it a breach of security if everyone on the sales team sees it? Well, it's not a breach of security, and yes, we're all working on this content. And don't create a private channel. Keep it standard. And you're like, oh, but that's going to be a lot of channels. That's okay. If I don't want to see a channel, I'm not an active participant, I can hide it. I'm not stuck with it. It's fine. I'll still get notifications. It's okay. Are these people part of the same team? No. E-commerce is going to be a completely different team. There may be some overlap, but the work is totally different. The topics are totally different. The paths don't really cross much. Go create a team, because there's a good chance inside of that new work group, there's going to be different topics of conversation and you need some elbow room. Go create a new team. It's like, oh, sorta. I mean, I just need a place where one or two people on the team can talk, but it's budget numbers or sensitive information that really the whole team is not appropriate for them to see it, but it's still about the team. It's still about sales. It's just not everyone needs to see a breakdown of every salesperson's commission. All right, private channel it is. Go for it.
Yeah, I would just add to that in addition to what Joy was saying, really the thing to think about on private channels is if you have a team, and most teams may have a manager or two of a team. If you need to have everybody, all 10 people, including the 2 managers in a single team, but then the 2 managers need some place where they can have sort of sidebar discussions and share sidebar content and so forth, then that's probably a good use case for a private channel. There's no need to have those 2 managers go off and create their own team just for the sake of them being able to have those sidebar conversations. They could do that in a private channel, but don't think about private channels as you tend to think about private chat communication. So if you have chat, as we talked about in a previous webinar, that's private communication, one-to-one or one-to-many in a group between you and other people. Don't think of it that way inside of Teams for private channels, because again, lots of times people think about it sort of in a, I'm a little unsure or maybe even insecure about what I'm asking or what I'm putting out there. And they're thinking like, I don't really want everybody to see because maybe I'm asking what I might think is sort of a dumb or a silly question. And they think to themselves, well, maybe I'll create a private channel out of that. Still not a good use case in most cases. It's really a mindset shift to think about being able to be open and have communications in the context of a team where everybody can access the same information.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll tell you, at Pate Group, what we do, so let's say we got a project going on and there's a activity coming up. I'm just not sure. Maybe I missed a meeting. I can go to Richard and go, hey, were you on that call? Oh yeah. Can you fill me in? You know, I might feel a little awkward going to the whole team and going, I have no idea what's going on. Can someone fill me in? Right? So you just go to chat for that. Now you're prepared, right? You can have those one-off conversations in chat, but then have your official team work project conversations inside of the appropriate channel. So I would never go into the commission reports and talk about sales readiness or knowledge sharing, just like I would never talk about commission inside of knowledge sharing, right?
Yeah.
Topics of conversation.
Do you have a question? Are you ready for this one, Joy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the question is, I noticed that viewing files within a channel does not automatically sort by file name, even though the template is set to do so. Have you ever run into this issue?
I've noticed it, but I've not paid a lot of attention to it, if that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah.
But one thing you can do, and I haven't noticed this not working, if that makes sense. You should be able to edit this view. I wish this had more than one thing in it. I guess I could go make it so. You should be able to edit that view. I haven't done a whole lot of that. Can I tell you something honest? Okay, so I've been in SharePoint for a long time. Been in Teams for about 3 years. I actually have a tendency to create a no folder view in SharePoint for the whole document library that all of these channels or folders in. And I will just switch to that view and have it set to be the order I want it to, because it's easier for me to find things that way. So there's an inside tip. If you prefer to see everything kind of busted out and in a particular order, go create your own view for that library and just use it here. It's not going to take me to SharePoint. Don't take me to SharePoint.
It's a good tip.
If you've ever sat in any of my webinars, we talk about files, or bless you if you've ever been in one of my training events, right? I am all about flat architecture. So I prefer to have a very concise bit of architecture. I like it to be flat. Show items in ascending order by name. So I'm going to play with this offline. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in this webinar on it, but I think if you go in and just create your own view and then utilize that, you'll be happier working in the Files tab inside of Teams.
And this topic might be a good one to carve off as either its own webinar or part of a webinar, at least.
Stacy's already making notes. She's like, oh, you're already doing this one. It's
And I think
written.
that ties into another question that we also got that's a similar ask. Is the question is, when would it make sense to use a view instead of a folder before
Right.
creating a new channel? Yeah.
In Teams, if we were just talking SharePoint, I would say always. But since we're talking about Teams, if you're going to want to talk about that, I feel like I'm overusing the word topic, that subset of documents, if it's going to have defined conversation around it, make it its own channel. So you can have that conversation in the channel, and it's easier to go back and find, what did Joy say about that thing? That thing would be in the channel. It would be easier to find that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
That's
great.
my 2 cents. What was our other? Okay. So we had creating teams was a hot topic. Private versus standard channels was a hot topic. What was our other one?
Well, so yeah, we went through the creation of teams and options. We talked about channels, and then we were asking about adding tabs and adding apps as sort of the other big things that we thought most people might be interested in hearing a little more about.
And that's a slide. Tabs.
Perfect.
Tabs make Teams shine because, and actually it's the last bullet point here. I don't know why, it should be the first. Using tabs reduces the amount of context switching you have to do. That's the official phrase, context switching. You go Google it. There's like Bing, go Bing it. There's all kinds of articles written around the amount of time we lose in a day context switching. I call it playing application hopscotch. I'm in Teams. I got to close Teams. I got to go to my browser. I have 3 browsers on my taskbar. Which one am I going to go to? I'll go to Edge, right? I'll open it up and I have to go find that thing and go log in. And if someone could send me some info on how to keep Edge Chromium on the profile I want it to be on, that would be amazing. I would find that very helpful. It's driving me crazy. So across the top here, right, I have posts, I have files, I have wiki. Those are the tabs that are automatically loaded in any channel when we create it. But if I click this plus sign, I have options. The top options, and it makes sense, right, are going to be other Microsoft things. It could be a form. It could be the OneNote notebook where all of our sales meeting notes go, right? A particular PDF planner. We love Planner. That's our visual task tracking app. Stream, do we have instructions, videos, good content there, right? Put it as a tab at the top. You can even dig into my SharePoint site. Because remember, can't have Teams without SharePoint. Let's see if we've got anything. Maybe there's news. Did I click it?
So briefly since you had pointed out Planner, there was a question that came in that was on that. And we are, by the way, just FYI, we're going to have a separate webinar that's going to be focused entirely on Planner and all the great things, because we all love Planner. But the question is,
Richard's going to lead that one because he's way more organized than me.
So the question is there a way to create a template of a plan and to not have to recreate everything again in Planner? And the answer is yes, you certainly can. You certainly can. There's this was not too recently, but it was recently released. So that if you go into Planner, one of the additional options is to make a copy of the plan. So you effectively can take an existing plan, make a copy of it. The one caveat that I'll mention, then again, we'll break it down further in the Planner webinar specific, is that today your ability to copy a plan that is a template is limited to only inside the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 group that planner exists in. So again, if you created a team and then you're creating planner boards inside of the team, or if you just went out to the Planner Hub and created plans straight from there, behind the scenes, it's creating a now called Microsoft 365 group. So planner templates can only be created, or copies of plans can only be created inside of an existing Microsoft 365 group. I'm sure that in the future, they would like to be able to give you the ability to create ones in other groups as well too, because that's kind of the whole point. But today, that's one of the limitations.
Jeff has something on Edge Chromium. For Edge Chromium with multiple profiles, any link will automatically open in the last profile browser window used. I've not found a way to override it with a default.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. It's all about community. So I'm just kind of doing a slow scroll through all of the apps available. I almost said third party, but if you look around, Dynamics, Yammer, I find it interesting that the Yammer app is way down here and not up top with the other Microsoft ones. Okay, don't know. Flow. Here's Trello. I know a lot of folks love Trello, MindMeister. These are not necessarily free. There's a good chance, I'm pretty sure it doesn't, like MindMeister, you have to have an account. But if you have that and it's a resource that you make available for your team, put that tab up there and they can log in. If it's shared account, you log in with the shared credentials. If everyone has their own, right? It's my link for my app. I click it, I can log in as me. So we have options. I'm going to throw this out there too. I've got some folks that I'm working with that are trying to dominate their organization with Microsoft 365. Go team go, but they're having a hard time letting go of WebEx. You know, some of the people with pull really like their WebEx. I've got some other folks that really like their GoToMeeting, right? But you see right here, if you need to bridge the gap, and you know, the olive branch. Hey, yeah, I use Teams, but if you really need your WebEx, just add it in. Okay, so definitely an olive branch. There's Adobe Sign. So you can add a tab to put this functionality at the fingertips of you and your team. You don't want to go nuts. So if I have like 10 tabs across the top, they're going to start to condense and I get this drop down thing to get to them. So put your most critical ones where they make sense. Maybe in general, it makes sense to be able to get to the SharePoint. For our inside of commission reports, I might put a link to the spreadsheet where that's tracked. And I'll show you, you can absolutely, I won't step through. Once you go in and click on it yourself, you'll see how super easy it is. I can point this to a specific file. Notice when I'm in a private channel, Planner's not here. This private channel is cut off from the Office 360, from the Microsoft 365 group that provides access. So I would need to add a website, go get the link for the Planner plan. I mean, you can still make it happen, but it's just not automagic.
Yeah, we did get a follow-up question that I think is related to what we were talking about. I'm not entirely sure, but it says, I have an issue with Planner from an existing group not showing for a team that I create.
Right.
And I think, again, that has to do with, again, there's a number of different places in Office 365 or Microsoft 365 where you can create a group. And if you created that group first from Planner, and then later you went and created a team from inside of Teams, you ended up creating two separate Microsoft 365 groups. And so that's why they're not tied together easily in that case so that you can see it. So I think that's the answer to that question. But again, we're certainly going to dive deeper into Planner and talk more about that in another webinar.
Absolutely. But go use the website tab. Go to your Waffle or your app launcher, go into Planner, get the link for that, and load it in the website tab. And I can't promise you won't have to fiddle around with that link just enough to get the right one, because I had that experience myself, but you can make it happen.
Yep. There are a few workarounds you can do in that case, but
absolutely.
Again, I'm hoping that in the future, Microsoft will make it easier for you to be able to connect plans from other groups.
Yeah, for sure. And so apps, we mentioned that when you click the plus sign to add a tab, you're adding an app into a tab. If there's an app, an application that you and your team use a lot and you don't see it here, it might be time to talk to your IT team. And if you're not in IT, don't be intimidated by that. We're friendly, helpful folk. Because notice on the ellipsis here, find an app. You might go and look around and see if you can find it. There's more apps. there's a lot out here. There's so much out here. Take a look. You may have a different experience here. Your IT department may have closed the window on all the apps that are out here and are only showing the ones they support. And while that might be frustrating, it's also safe. I don't know, safe is it's not necessarily the correct word, but it helps everyone out, not just having an overflow of things that you may not be able to access from the environment. And you can even upload custom apps if you have permission to do that. Talk with your IT department, see what's out there, see what's available. They might have a developer that could go, get to that app. My mind just went totally blank on the correct terminology. Oh, get hold of the exposed API and create an app that can be layered into Teams.
So continuing on the new team first. So it says, no, I create a new team first and then go to Planner to find an existing group to attach the Planner list of existing groups. It doesn't show the new team that was created.
And again, I think that's because you've got dueling Office 365 groups.
It seems that way, but it's also a little difficult to do this just over the Q&A. So we would certainly be happy to kind of help you with that if we can. If you go back to slides, Joy, because I think we're getting close to the end anyway.
Yeah.
We've got our contact info. You can certainly reach out to us a number of different ways. Shoot us an email, connect with us on LinkedIn. We're also out there on Twitter as well too. Twitter actually is sometimes preferable for us because that way we can just put it out in the open. And if we get to the right answer, then everybody benefits from that information. But so we might ask you, if it's okay with you, just for the sake of time, connect with us on Twitter, post that question again where we can dialogue with you a little bit back and forth and try to really get to the heart of the question.
Absolutely. And then let's talk one more thing. But yeah, if you feel, reach out, shoot us a little use case in your steps there. We'll see what we can find out for you. Yep. Archiving a team. So you don't have to delete a team if you're done with it. Yes. If you do delete a team, you're going to delete all kinds of other stuff too. So you can come in. You have to be an owner of the team to archive. Hello, Lydia. Let me click on my Teams button here. For real. So this little gear, or as our British friends say, cog, that's your managed teams gear. So let's pretend that we're done with Contoso. Apparently, I don't know, they're done with this initiative. I'm an owner. If I come to the ellipsis or the 3 dots, I have the option to archive this team. When I do that, it will freeze all team activity, but you'll still be able to add and remove members, update roles. I can archive. While it's archiving the team, there we go. Comes down here. Under archive, there's Contoso. I could choose, maybe we made a mistake. Oops, wrong Contoso. I can restore it. So you do have options for that. If you don't want to delete all of the assets, you don't want to delete the SharePoint site, you can just archive. You can still get to the content, you can still get to files. Your planner plan stays fine. All those assets are okay. If I were to delete it, the dominoes tip, and I start deleting SharePoint and the group and planner and the team and the inbox, everything starts to go away.
Yeah. That archive feature, that's some magic that the engineering teams came up with, because
yes,
as Joy was saying, I mean, it's basically just sort of putting all of those Microsoft 365 resources that combines together, just putting them aside as a group so that you can then restore them later if you needed to. I think that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so I think we're right at the tail end of this now, Joy. Awesome job again, as always. Want to say thanks to everybody who's jumped on and spent some time with us this afternoon. We're going to continue doing this because we have been having lots of fun doing this. And so we're going to be back again next week, Tuesday, the 21st. And we're going to dig in more specifically, a little bit deeper into files and all the different things that you can do with files in the context of Microsoft Teams. So if you would like to join us, please do register for that webinar as well. And then again, we'll continue to post out different topics that we intend to be able to deliver for some future webinars as well. And we'd also love some feedback from you on that too. So if there are some topics that you think you would really like to hear about, and they don't have to necessarily even be just specific to Teams, they could be anything kind of Microsoft 365 related, please let us know. We'd certainly appreciate it.
Awesome.
Anything else from you, Joy or Stacy?
No, I'll send out a link to register for the next webinar shortly after this this meeting closes. So just to make sure that you guys know how to access that. And yes, as Richard said before, if you have any ideas or topics that you want us to cover, please let us know.
Yep. And thank you so much for being a part of today's webinar.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.